Hi traders, TG Watkins here of simplertrading.com, and welcome to the first episode of Moxie Minutes on StockCharts.com. Very excited to be here. Thank you to StockCharts for having this happen, and they've been a great team working with us, so I'm very excited to be here and actually getting to show you guys what the Moxie Indicator is looking like. So this will be a routine installment that we're doing. Basically, I'm going to be coming in at the end of the week, kind of showing you some of the things that I saw that were interesting in the market. And all the while, we're going to be giving you little education moments about the Moxie Indicator, how it works, how I trade, and how I'm using it to trade in the market. So let's take a few minutes, dive into this, and see how the market's doing coming into middle of September, where, well, it is seasonally weak. So we're finding that the market has been down. We're going to try and see if there's any kind of support and where we're going to be going for the rest of the month. All right, let's get into it. All right, so where I usually like to start is on the indexes because mostly I'm a top-down trader, meaning that so go the indexes, so go the rest of the stocks. And so we want to know what the stock market itself is doing. And what we'll be jumping into is here with the S&P. And so here we are with the S&P, and one of the things that we've been seeing is clearly the market has been getting pushed down. Now, what I've been talking about to my Moxie subscribers is, hey, usually the daily 21 is the first place that price is going to bounce. Well, the daily 21 on my charts is kind of this reddish color one. And so you can see here, it bounced there, bounced there, bounced there. And where we should have been seeing the S&P bounce at the daily 21 this week, it did not. And so that was the first clue that something had changed, that something wasn't really good out there, and that we're actually probably going to be seeing some more downside and stronger downside in the market. And once the daily 21 was not going to happen, then we were starting to look back at the daily 50 because the daily 50 here as the magenta colored line is the next area that we've been starting to see as support. And sure enough, right now it's at the daily 50 and we are starting to see that price is starting to hold here. The question is, for how long? Is this going to be something that is going to be some good support? And that's no problem. We're going to start going up at the end of the month. Well, we don't quite know that. I am a little bit cautious about this because it is September, we're seasonally weak, and then going into October, it takes a little bit for the stock market to really pick up and get back into a bullish swing if it's going to for the end of the year. The other thing that we've been seeing is that price is actually staying on the daily 50 for quite some time, and I'm looking at that saying, hey, this looks pretty heavy. And if price is going to be down here on the daily 50 and operate here for a while, it might actually start eroding the strength of that moving average, and it could start falling below it. So what we need to do is start using the lower time frames to help answer that question of, is price going to hold this or is it going to fall through it? And one of the ways that I like to look at this is I then go to the next lower time frame, which is the hourly 50, or at least the hourly chart. And what we've been seeing is price has generally been bouncing around the hourly 200, which is the kind of gold colored line here. Well, where we are now is we are below it and spending quite a bit of time below it. The other thing is when I factor in the Moxie Indicator trying to tell me, hey, are we seeing some strength here, or is this just a dip or something like that? What I've been noticing and talking to the subscribers about is that over here, the Moxie Indicator is awfully low. And if you look left, we have not seen it this low for a very, very long time. Basically, I think it was March, something like that, May that we're looking at. And that's pretty bad. So it tells me that there's a lot of negative energy in this because the Moxie Indicator is a momentum-based indicator. And the way that we read it is if it's below zero, which is this zero line, well, then it's negative and the energy is negative. And if it's above zero, well, then it's positive. So when you think about it that way, and if we need to have the Moxie Indicator over zero, being positive, in order for the market or the ticker to go up and have positive energy, well, think about how much distance there is between price or between the zero line and the Moxie Indicator before it goes positive. There's a long distance. And then that's why we can use the Moxie Indicator for timing purposes. So a lot of times you'll see that the Moxie Indicator gets to or crosses over zero at the same time that there becomes a good setup in the market or in the ticker that we're looking at. And then what we do, just to make it easier for you to see, is that where the Moxie Indicator crosses through zero, we print a green arrow. And where it crosses below zero, we print a red arrow, and vice versa. So just keep that in mind, that that's what those red and green arrows are, just denoting when the Moxie Indicator crosses above or below zero. And when we start seeing that the indicator is crossing above and below zero a lot, it's telling us that there is not a lot of conviction, because basically momentum is swinging from positive to negative to positive to negative. And that's not good for a trend. So we look at this and say, the Moxie indicator is very far below zero. That means it's going to have a long way to go before it can get positive. And that tells me that anytime price is starting to move up, it's kind of working against itself because the indicator is so low and so negative. So even though we have some support at these moving averages, the indicator is telling me that, you know what, internal energy is actually pretty heavy, pretty negative, and to be real cautious of any kind of up moves. We're also seeing that with the daily chart. So over the last few weeks, even a couple months, what we've been seeing is in through here, this last rally, the Moxie indicator has just really not been very happy. Even though the index, the S&P, has been moving up, fairly well, kind of just grinding up like that. Look how messy the Moxie indicator is. Like, it wasn't over zero, it wasn't over zero, it finally got over zero, then got below zero, then got over zero, and now we're back below zero. There's not a lot of conviction there. If we're going to be seeing some strong trends, I'll zoom out and show you this, we want to be seeing a lot of green. So we want to see right in through here, we want to see a lot of green on it up. We want to see a lot of green in through here. And you could even see, as another example, look at the Moxie indicator right here where we're starting to get a little wishy-washy, like green, red, green, red, green, red, and look what happened. We got a pullback going into, well, last September. And so we're starting to see the same thing right here as that. So it's trying to tell us that, you know what, momentum, energy, not very strong. It doesn't got a lot of conviction. So we want to see nice, strong greens like that, nice, strong greens like that when we start seeing good moves in the market. All right, so we got that on the SPY. Then we can jump over to the NASDAQ. The other thing that we see with the Moxie indicator are divergences. Now, these can be positive or negative divergences. So positive divergences are good for us because that's telling us, well, if we're going to go long, that's telling us it's good because we're going to see something pop up like that. So look, we have a higher low in the Moxie indicator, and basically we have a level right here in price. So there's a divergence. If price is at the same level, but the Moxie indicator is at a different level, that's telling us kind of the internal pressure of what's going on. And so we can see that we got a really good run from that. Now flip it around, and we're starting to see that price recently has gone higher, but the Moxie indicator is going lower. And so we're starting to see some negative divergence in there as well, which is starting to agree with what I was looking at in the S&P, that we're starting to see some weakness out there. And that basically what it's trying to tell us is, why is price going higher on less energy? That's what the Moxie indicator is telling us. And then in through here, I'm looking at this and saying, hey, we have price below the hourly 50, and we have the Moxie indicator below zero. So part of the Moxie rules are that you should not be long if you're below the 50 and the indicator is below zero, because basically both of those are negative. You're following that hourly 50 down, and the Moxie indicator is following you down too. And so we're looking at this, and the only thing that I see that the NASDAQ is being held on by or supported is the daily 21 and the hourly 200. And I'm not so sure that that's going to be strength long term. I'm kind of looking at this and saying, I think it's going to be temporary support. We're probably going to get a bounce of some sort, but I'm concerned that price is actually going to fall off of the hourly 200 and the daily 21. And when that happens, well, the next target's going to be the daily 50, and it might still push through the daily 50 a little bit more. So be very careful about trying to be long in this market. There are clearly some moves out there, but what I'm seeing here is that the indexes need to take a bit of a break or do some sort of pullback or chop sideways for a while. Now, let's go then over to the IWM, because the IWM has been pretty interesting, actually. I'm looking at this thing, and what I've been seeing recently, let me get that, there you go, is I have been watching these positive divergences start to form on the Moxie indicator. So you can see that there was a higher low in the Moxie indicator and a double bottom on the daily price. So there's that positive divergence that I just showed you on the NASDAQ too. So there was a little bit of a move there, and that's what got us right here. Let me zoom in for you. That is what got the IWM back on top of the daily 50. So that's good, because what happened last time is we had price run into the daily 50. So what we're looking at over the last week or two is that the daily 50 was resistance, and now it's no longer resistance because price got through it and is now sitting on top of it. So I'm very keen to be watching this because I want to see if this area right here, as price comes into the daily 50, the daily 200, ends up being some strength. Now, it doesn't have to be right now. It doesn't even have to be next week. Price can move around and chop and kind of build that base for quite some time. And so what can help me determine if price is going to find this daily chart some support is if I look at the next lower time frame. And so that's when we go over here to the hourly time frame. And so what I've been looking at, you can see actually there was some positive divergence too on that double bottom. That double bottom that we had on the daily chart. Look at this. You can see that the Moxie Indicator had positive divergence. So there was a pretty good move that we had right there. And then once it started to pull back, you can see here it broke underneath the hourly 50, and I'll show you the 15-minute time frame too, because we actually saw some clarity there as well. But what I'm looking for in order to know if the daily 50 or the daily 200 are going to be support is I want to see price get back on top of this hourly 50, and I want to see the Moxie Indicator get back on top of the zero line. I want to see it get back over zero. I wanted to see it get positive, because for me, if we're going to be trading trends and swing trades, what do we need? We need, if we're going to go long, we need to have price over the moving averages. We need to have the moving averages going up, and we need to have the Moxie Indicator positive over zero and going green every day into the future. So right now, is there a long trade? No, because price is still underneath a downtrending hourly 50. So that's not a trend. That's not an uptrend. And the Moxie Indicator is below zero. So really, we just have to keep waiting because this time frame is just not ready to tell us if it's going to be going up or not yet. All right, so let's go over here to IWM on the 15-minute time frame, because the same way that I use the daily and the hourly to tell me what's going on with each other, I like to use the 15-minute to then tell me what's going on with, say, the hourly. So I kind of Russian nesting dolls, or I like to look lower and have the smaller time frames kind of tell me what's going on with the higher time frames. And so if we look at the IWM, back here, right when we saw that the price was going to start coming back down through the hourly 50, we're like, is price going to bounce off of the hourly 50 or not? Well, if we look here to the next lower time frame, which is the 15-minute time frame, we could see right where price was starting to come into the hourly 50, we had the 15-minute time frame underneath the 15-minute 50 SMA. And you can see here that the Moxie Indicator was very red and very much below zero. And that was the start of price starting to fall through the hourly 50. The 15-minute time frame is what helped guide us into this and tell us, hey, this thing's going to start going down, and this might be a problem for your positions or the index or whatever it is that you care about. But if you need to know that the IWM is going to be pulling back, this is where it starts. And then we can even show you the negative divergence, because you can see here that price was going up, and look at the Moxie Indicator. It had a lower high. So then again, we're seeing that negative divergence kick in. Just the same as we're seeing some positive divergence right here of the Moxie Indicator trending up, even though price has been going down. And we could see that the Moxie Indicator was telling us that price was probably going to come into support and probably going to start moving up or doing a bounce of some sort. So even though we see that bounce, it doesn't mean that we're ready to go long yet. Now, let me kind of flip back over here, and the FFTY is the IBD50. It's the ETF for the IBD50. And I like to talk about this one actually because I think it's a good metric for what's kind of going out there. Yes, they pick different stocks and it's only 50, but it's a fun ticker to be looking at to kind of see what's going on with the market, because for me, I like to trade stocks that happen to be into the IWM, mostly small caps, because they move pretty well when they do move. And then so the IBD kind of has been following the IWM lately. And so what we can see here, let me zoom in just a little bit, is that yes, the IBD 50 has been going sideways for just as long as the IWM. But note here that what we've been seeing is that the FFTY, the IBD 50, got over the daily 50 and then pulled back into the daily 50. This is very, very similar to what the IWM is doing right now. It's what I just spent a few minutes on looking at. And what I've been noting is that even though price went down right here, notice that the Moxie indicator kept moving up every single day. So this is something important. There's that divergence that I'm talking about. Like why is the Moxie indicator moving up even though price is moving down? That's trying to tell you what's happening inside of price and that you should be paying attention to it. So I've been looking at price coming into the daily 50. We're seeing that with the IWM as well. And then you can see here that price was starting to slow down. You can see that price here on the hourly chart was starting to come down, starting to bump around a little bit like this. And then you know what? When did price finally get going? When it broke up and over the hourly 50. So this is what I was talking about when on the IWM, I'm trying to look lower at the lower time frames to say, when is this thing going to go based on the daily chart? Well, right there, right there. And then what you can see here is that we got the Moxie indicator fire, so meaning that the Moxie indicator got over 0. Then you can see the hourly 50 went from a downtrend to an uptrend, and what did price do? It came in right here and bounced off of the hourly 50, and then it was off to the races. So this is some pretty cool stuff, and this is what I'm looking at for the IWM to see if the IWM is going to take off sometime in the near future. I believe that the FFTY, the IBD50, has actually been a pretty good roadmap for what we might want to be looking for and might want to expect on the IWM. So keep that in mind. And hopefully I'm hammering this in enough so that you guys understand where I'm trying to go with this. So then thanks again for tuning in. Glad that we're doing this for the first time. As I said, this is going to be a routine installment, so you guys will be seeing more of me. And I'm sure as we kind of go through this and you guys get to see more and more of me, you'll see more and more of the education that I kind of put into this and how the Moxie indicator works and how I actually trade using it. Now let's go over to GBTC, which is the ETF for Bitcoin. Now, some might argue about the authenticity of using this ETF versus, the futures. But for me, I trade my eyes based on, normal trading hours, and I like how they move this way. And they seem to work just fine for me. And so that's why I'm going to be using GBTC as opposed to the Bitcoin futures. Now, what I have been noticing here is that there is a block of price right up here. There's a lot of activity, right? There's a lot of price congestion. There are a lot of people, traders up there that, maybe they bought. You got to think about kind of the psychology of trading, right? Are there a lot of people up there? Probably a lot of people thought that this was going to be a great place to buy in and that it was going to go higher, and then it didn't. And maybe they didn't sell, and they've just been hanging on this whole time thinking, oh, well, whenever this kind of comes back, then if it can just get back to my original price, then I can sell. Well, what do you think right here when price got right up to the bottom of that thing, that people probably said, well, maybe that's good enough and I can sell into it. So you look at that, price ran right up into all that resistance and started to come back down. Now, that's one way to look at it. The other way that I like to look at it too is that I usually see price cross over the moving average. Same concept that I just showed you on the FFTY and the IWM, right? We got price to get over the daily 50, and then what do I look for? I'm looking for a pullback into support, into the daily 50. And so that's why when I saw that there was a big gap right here between price and the daily 50, I said, at some point, price is probably going to come back down to that, and then we'll have to see if it's going to be support. So sure enough, we got price up over the daily 50, and then it pulled back into the daily 50. Now, just like I said on the IWM and all that kind of stuff, just because price is at the daily 50 doesn't mean that I want to go buy it, because I don't know if it's actually going to hold. Price could come down to the daily 50, kind of spend some time there, and then go lower, and that would not be great if we're trying to be going long. So what I do to figure out if that's going to be happening is, I keep an eye on here on the daily chart, seeing about price at the daily 50, but I got to go over here to the next lower time frame, which is the hourly chart. And what I see here is, what I'm looking for is trying to figure out is price in an uptrend? Does it fit the Moxie rules? Does it fit the checklist that I have? We're looking at this, and in through here, there was nothing. Price was below the hourly 50. The Moxie indicator was below 0. So, this could have kept going down. But right now it's bouncing. So now we have to ask ourselves the question again, does this work? Does it fit the Moxie rules? Does it fit the requirements? And right now, we have price over the 50, but the Moxie indicator is lagging. That's a problem. This is what I call an inverse trampoline move. Again, since this is the first installment of the Moxie indicator minutes, you guys will be picking up on some of the lingo that I use and some of the rules over time as I trade using this. So let me go explain for just a moment what that is. So in this case, part of the rules are that price should not be over the 50 SMA, if the Moxie indicator is below 0. So right here was a really good situation. You can see that price was over the 50, but notice that the Moxie indicator was below 0. And what happened? Price got pushed down pretty darn hard, right? So we're kind of running into that situation again. Notice that price is over the 50 and the Moxie indicator is below 0. So right now, I'm not trusting this situation. I'm not right now believing that price is going to continue to bounce off the daily 50, not until a few more days go by and something different starts to show up. But right now, I don't see anything. So we're going to have to wait for that. What I do like to see is like this. Right back here, when we did have the good move, we had price over the 50 and the Moxie indicator was over 0. That's good. That actually fulfills the rules. That's what I want to see. So that was a good trade. And then you can see here when the Moxie indicator crossed below 0, momentum was done. And you can see actually that was the end of the price movement. So there you go. That was a really good trade based on the Moxie indicator crossing above 0, crossing below 0, and you've pretty much caught all the move. So that one worked out very, very nicely. And all the while, you can see that negative divergence that I was talking about kick in. You can see how price went higher, Moxie indicator went lower. Price tried to go higher, Moxie indicator kept going lower. Price basically did a double top right there. Well, the Moxie indicator went lower and was below 0. So that was the issue that I saw. And all at the same time, you can see here, price was running into its previous price congestion. So there were a lot of signs telling us that Bitcoin is probably going to take a break for a moment and might have needed to even pull back, which it did. All right, then let's get into BGFV. This was a high short interest stock that we had a really good time with, actually. And I think that there are a lot of good things to be looking at in this one. I think that there are some good learning opportunities, basically. So number one, what I was looking at is this is the trade that we took right here. We got price, it just fit all the rules. Let me show you kind of from the beginning. What you can see is price down, Moxie indicator up. Okay, it still had some resistance, so we didn't want to go in on anything yet right there. And so then we could see, hey, double bottom. We can continue to see that the Moxie indicator kept coming on. So there was we could see with price, that price was starting to do a double bottom, so that's good. It was putting in a level. That's one way to look at it. And then we could see that the Moxie indicator was starting to trend up the entire time. That's positive divergence. That's good. That's telling us that internal momentum is actually starting to kind of go upward and wanting to push price up. And so then we saw, well, what's the rule? We get price, let me actually zoom in one more time with this one. There you go. We can see that we got price up and over the hourly 50. And then just like I was talking about earlier with the FFTY, with the IWM, what's the next thing that I look for? I look for price to pull back into support to verify that it is actually that moving average is now support as opposed to resistance. And look what we got right there. We got price pulling back into an uptrending hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator solidly green, looking very good. It's been green every day that it's been moving up, and that looked fantastic. And so we got in through here, and we had a nice move up on that. It was a high short interest stock, so there were a lot of shorts that needed to get out and just spike this thing. So that was really nice. And even on the daily chart, where this thing was starting to go, we could see here that the 8 EMA was starting to cross over the 21 EMA, so that's bullish. And then we could see that price was just starting to get past the daily 50 as well. And this thing just, boom, shot up. Now, we were able to take our profits on the way up because I had a feeling this thing was going to pull back. A couple of reasons. Number one, because if you look here, if you look left, price ran right into its previous high. It's a double top, right? So that one was pretty easy. The other situation is, just like here, look at how similar this is, where price crossed over the hourly 50 and then pulled back into the hourly 50. What is it doing here on the daily chart? Notice price crossed over the daily 50, and then what's going to happen next? Most likely, price is going to pull back into the daily 50. It's the same situation. So this is why a lot of times the way that I trade and the way that I teach, I say it's fractal. I'm teaching you stuff here on the daily and hourly, but if you're a day trader, you're probably going to see something like this on the 5 and the 2 minutes, or the 15 and the 5, whatever like that. And that's why we have the Moxie Indicator also designed for the 15, the 5, and the 2 minutes. So if you guys are interested in the Moxie Indicator, we have it on StockCharts.com now. That's why if you guys want to do intraday trading, just take everything that I teach you and apply it to the lower time frames. And you'll see that these kind of setups occur everywhere. You just kind of need to be aware of them and look for them. And then the Moxie Indicator can help tell you when you see really good energy like that. Now, the other thing, remember, I was just talking about for Bitcoin, that inverse trampoline move, right? Well, here it is. Here's another one. Price over the 50, but the Moxie Indicator below 0. So this was yet another thing that was telling me that you got to sell on the way up because this thing's most likely going to pull back pretty hard. And now we have to just wait for the next opportunity for this thing to go along with. I think that's pretty good for now. I hope you guys had a good time. I know that there's a lot of information that I just kind of crammed in for a few minutes for you. As I said, we're going to be doing this on a routine basis. So, tune in, check it out, see what you guys can learn. And if you're interested in the Moxie Indicator, we've got it on StockCharts.com. This is a brand new thing. And thank you, StockCharts, for allowing me to come on over to your platform and educate a little bit. So looking forward to it. We'll see how much traction we get with this. And if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, tickers you want to look at, shoot them over to me. That way I can actually give you guys some good stuff and good insight to talk about. So thanks again. Hope you guys are enjoying this, and we'll see you next week.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.